It is Saturday, January 11th,
Woo.
2025. Can you guys believe that? It is 2025. It's
I
no
mean, it was
longer
last time we did this
2024.
too, I
I know.
think.
Shut up, Danny. Shut up. It relates to today's topic. All
I
right.
know, I
Jeez.
know, I know.
Well,
Very funny.
good morning, everybody. Hope you all are having a happy Saturday. Today we have a what I think is a great episode because this time of year we all have these incredible aspirations for so much in the new year, and this is right around the time when we usually lose all those
Well, you know what?
aspirations, right?
Actually,
When we
no, I was
quit.
gonna say, I also think, because this just reminded me of something, because like it was a rough week this week with sleep and stuff, and I think it's also, I feel like this time of year, there's pressure to feel like you're doing a lot at the
I
beginning of the
agree.
year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. I'm not saying like finesse. I think there is pressure from
Yeah.
outside, but it's mostly from ourselves. And I think it's also very misguided and really incorrect anyway, because it has that possibility of also crushing you from doing the things you really want to do because you get too
Yeah.
much on your case. It's like a really, I think, tricky time where you also have to be careful with
I,
that.
I really like that you said that because I think that is true. We see that a lot, especially in American culture of like, gotta hustle
Grind.
really hard, gotta
Yeah.
grind. And like as soon as it's a new year, people are like, new year, gotta make as much money as I can the first 5 seconds of the new year.
Or I'm a
And it's
failure.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We need to give ourselves a little bit of a break and not just rush into the new year. But that said, we had some New Year's resolutions that we want to go over today,
Mhm.
right? Some
Yeah, it's
ones
my
that,
favorite time of year because
yeah.
the gym gets super busy right now
Oh
for
God, yeah.
3 weeks, and then after that, not so busy.
There's this
You know,
gym right by me. I went to pick up pizza the other night, and they have like how the big glass windows so you can see in. And I
yeah,
see
Hmm.
this gym all the time, and it was like just packed to the rafters, which it never is.
Yeah.
Usually, like it's
of
so funny.
course.
I was like, oh man, everybody's back. Everybody's trying
Yeah.
today.
Hmm.
I considered getting a gym membership and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be part of that club of like all the people that just wanted a New Year's
But
gym membership. So I
you know
decided
what's
to
you know
wait.
what's interesting about this time of year is statistically this time of year you're most likely to start a new habit, but also statistically you're most likely to fail
Yes.
if you start now.
Really?
So, well, yeah, because everybody with their New Year's resolutions.
It's true. So am I
Yeah.
supposed to start a new habit or not? I
I would
guess
say
not.
no. I would say no.
Mm.
Like if you plan on doing something, probably wait. Don't do it now
I
because
wonder when,
there's
And
pressure
also
to
don't
actually
do
fail, to
I
give
think
up.
too that
yeah.
people do a lot. I think there's also that like tendency or pressure maybe to do like the social posts and stuff like I'm going to do this and all. And then it's like you set yourself up for failure too because now it's like you're putting extra pressure, added pressure on something that you haven't even tried out yet, and you don't even know if it's going to
Yeah.
work.
I wonder if there is like an actual time of the year where um make it like what's the best time of the year to make commitments to doing something new where you
I would
actually
say
follow
probably
through the most?
February.
February? Why? Right after Valentine's Day?
Well, I
Everyone's depressed and
no,
goes and
because
works out.
you're already past the wave of like failing your New Year's resolutions, but there's
Mm,
nothing else to do until May.
That's
So
that's
true. You
like
do have
true.
time.
it's a
There's nothing
whole,
to
I mean,
do.
it's like
Yeah.
4 months of just bitter, brutal winter and nothing else to do. So it's a
Yeah.
great time to actually accomplish stuff, and you don't have everything going against you with the failed New Year's resolution. So you just
I
start in
also
Yeah.
think
February.
no, I agree with that. I also think like picking up new habits, morning, Chris, is also good when there's not everybody else trying to do the same around you. Because it's like you can
Mm,
do it on your own speed and your own pace. Like, what if you do want to start the gym? If you go now, you're going to see people going every day, trying to do too much because they're gonna fail eventually. But if you go by yourself, you could start out with 2 times a week or once a week, and get into it
yeah.
and then do it right.
And it's
Yeah.
annoying going to the gym now because you
Dude,
have
it's
to wait
horrible.
for machines and everything like that, and everything's taken. And yeah,
Yeah. F that. The only machine that I even like using in the gym, which is
Is
going to
the neck
sound weird.
exercise machine?
Yes. And this one, whichever this one is.
The shake weight. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh, dude,
shake
it's such a
weight
good
and the
episode of
neck
South Park.
exercise are my favorite. No, I was gonna say, oddly enough, the Stairmaster, like that
Oh,
for cardio machines,
buns and
like that's
thighs. There you
yeah.
go.
Like I used to run a lot, and then I was like, running hurts your body. So I
Yeah.
started using the Stairmaster. I'm like, this thing's awesome because you get like a crazy good workout and it's repetitive. So you can like it's actually where I learned a lot of code because years ago I used to just watch like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript videos while doing the Stairmaster.
I
So
always used to watch
you want to know my
stuff when
secret?
I always used to watch or read when I was doing cardio. It's always a good
Yeah,
way. Yeah,
yeah,
I like
totally.
that.
Cool. Well, before this episode, Randall, you actually asked our favorite AI companion, Mr. ChatGPT,
Yeah.
about some New Year's resolutions
It's
for
Dr.
developers, right?
ChatGPT.
Actually non-binary, so it's
Oh,
Mr.,
oh,
Mrs., or other
it's
ChatGPT.
okay. It's
Yeah.
they,
Yes.
they GPT. Got you. Okay.
Identi
Well,
my ChatGPT identifies as a dolphin, so let's
oh,
just
so would you call
You can move
yourself a
everyone.
dolphin trainer? Is that
Mm.
you'd be the dolphin trainer? Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I thought before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, I thought maybe we should go over these New Year's resolutions because I think they're like a good,
These are good ones. Yeah.
yeah, they're really good. It's a good list of New Year's resolutions for any developer if you want to improve your skills and become a better developer this year. So,
Or if you don't, yeah,
uh,
if you don't know what you want to do yet, this is a good list of what you could possibly do for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it away, Randall. Why don't you start us out with number one? What's the
All
number
right.
one on the list?
Yeah, so number one on the list is learn a new programming language. And it says explore a language you're not familiar with, such as Rust, Go, or Python, to broaden your expertise. And this one
Yeah.
could be interesting. There's just a caveat to this.
Mm.
If the language that you first chose that you've been working on, like let's say you've done HTML and CSS and you're working on JavaScript, and JavaScript all of a sudden got hard.
Yeah.
It's not the time to go and
Nope.
learn another language. It's not the time to go learn the basic data structures from Python and the basic like
No.
flow
What, just
control
so
in
you feel
Python
good?
and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How to declare a variable in
No,
Python.
but you know what? I think that's a really good point. Like, right, you want to push through when it gets hard because otherwise you'll never really get masterful at that language. And that's true even
Yeah.
when you're learning I think about it too. It's very similar to like when you're learning a foreign language too, right? It's easy at the beginning, you can memorize some stuff, but then it's going to get hard once you get into like the more complicated like things of the language. So I think in this case though too, if you are doing like JavaScript, learning a backend language wouldn't be a bad idea because it gives you some different insight into how things work. It
Hey,
gives you a
Danny,
little different way of thinking of it. Yeah.
JavaScript is a backend
I
language
know it
too.
is. I'm well aware. But I'm saying like one that's more oriented towards it.
No,
Like
I know.
Python, the list was Rust,
PHP
Python, Go. They were like,
I know, I
PH, yeah.
know.
or like
Just
PHP that
giving you a
handles a lot
hard
of
time.
backend web
I know.
stuff.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, I think that it doesn't hurt because I do know, like, for myself, knowing multiple languages does make it easier when you're looking at documentation and
Yeah.
stuff. You have more point of reference when
No,
you
I
run into
totally
things.
agree. I would say that's a good resolution for like a mid-level developer, not a junior developer. When you're a junior developer, you need to stay really focused on what you're
Yeah.
learning because there is so much that you could potentially learn, but it's sort of like I always think about this thing sort of related to what you were saying, but like if you imagine, building a skill like climbing a ladder, if you go, learn a skill and then once it gets hard, you switch to something else, it's sort of like you're just standing on the first ladder or the first
Yeah.
rung of every single ladder and you really want to get like high up on that ladder. So,
Here's
yeah.
here's the benefit of knowing multiple languages is that you can read whatever code you see, but the downside is you have no idea what language it's in. That happens to me all the time. I'm like, I know exactly what this says, but I have no idea what language this is.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to look at you
That
have to
is
look
a
at
skill.
the document
Yeah.
dot whatever, right? To figure
Yeah.
it out. What do you guys actually on a side note, what do you think of this? Like, because and I don't think this is good again for beginners, but if you've gone on your journey for a little while, like What do you feel about like dipping your feet into other areas of tech that you're interested in, but maybe not your primary focus? Because I enjoy that, like looking at machine learning, looking at like
Yeah.
AI stuff, how that
I
works. Like
think,
not necessarily like coding it always, but like just learning about it. It helps you, I think,
yeah.
get the larger picture too. I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it depends on what your focus is because
Yeah, naturally.
um, I think a lot of it can be super beneficial. Some of the skill set that I have from before I was a developer is around graphic design, digital marketing, SEO, and that has come in handy a lot for me. So
Oh yeah.
I think definitely, expanding to other realms of software development like machine learning and things like that, but also, things that aren't necessarily development related, right? Like if you can learn social media marketing and web development, you can have yourself like a full on 6, 7 figure business very easily,
Yeah.
right? And so I think focusing on some of those skills can be very helpful because the other thing too is, we're web developers. The people that we talk to are usually business owners who need a website, and they usually need the other stuff too. They usually need the advertising, the SEO, the whatever else you can offer them.
Yeah, it's funny, like my hobby of photography helps me with because I'm familiar with a lot of the photo editing apps and stuff. That's really
Yeah.
helpful. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a good point too, because also I think a lot of people don't realize that nowadays, like especially for new developers, starting out freelance is going to be probably the way you're going to go because
Yeah.
companies don't hire as many junior developers as they used to. They're not investing in people that
Yeah.
long. So
Yeah.
they're looking to like, grab people later, and I think it's a good way to start and get really familiar with stuff and also build yourself something.
Yeah, I think about that, like even what you just said, right? Like logo design. If you can understand how to
Yeah.
build a logo in Photoshop or Illustrator, that's a huge add on. I mean, how many business owners have we talked to just in the past year that are like, hey, I need a website, but I could also use a logo refresh, or I just need a logo in general?
Or
Like, that's a
content
very,
pictures or
yeah, like anything. They're like, I don't actually know what I'm doing, but I
yeah,
need it
I have
all.
nothing.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great one. All right, so I'm going to continue down this list here. So number two is one that I think we hear about a lot about, but I don't think as many people do this as like people say to do when you're a junior developer, and that is contribute to open source. So what that means is there are projects out there that are open source, meaning there's multiple developers who are working on them. The code is free to use and share.
A lot of
And these are,
packages we use are that, right? Daisy UI is
yeah,
open source, right?
exactly.
Actually a lot of them are. Yeah, so
Yeah. And so, this is something that gets talked a lot about when you get out of boot camp or university, or you're just trying to make a name for yourself. A lot of developers will give you the advice of go out and contribute to open source. And I think that's a great recommendation. I think it's also sometimes a little confusing for new developers because they're like,
also
well,
overwhelming.
where? Yeah, like
Like
overwhelming. Yeah.
I think
Also,
it's
in
good.
order
Um,
to
You
do that,
network through it,
oftentimes you
right?
need to use some version control system, which is just confusing and hard for new
yes,
developers.
Yes. It can be scary,
exactly.
right? I think if you do want to go this route, because I think there is a lot of benefit in the sense that one, you meet other developers. You have something clear you
Hmm.
can point to that everybody's familiar with that you would have contributed to. So that's always a good
Yeah.
benefit. But if you want to go to this route and you're relatively new, I would suggest like reach out to some of these people that are working on it and be honest about where you are. Like, look, I'm
Yeah.
I'm new, I'm junior developer, I'm really interested in what you guys do. I like this project. Would there be anything I could help with? Just
Yeah.
to like not set yourself up for
There's,
something where you might be dangerous, or scary.
yeah, I totally agree with that. There's also ways that you can get involved at very low levels on open source projects. Like, for example, one that I've heard a lot of developers do is maybe you're not going to develop like the next, I don't know, amazing microservice for Netflix. Maybe instead of that, you're just going to find like a spelling mistake and you fix that in somebody's open
Yeah.
source code that's still contributing. And that doesn't take any conversations. You can just find an open source project, find something that you can fix, and make a pull request. And that's contributing to open source.
Yeah, you can also
So,
do, they also need a lot of help with a lot of things, documentation,
yeah.
writing that,
Yeah.
getting that worked out so it's good, doing all kinds of testing and stuff. There is a lot of things they need. So I think, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And Chris just said,
And
right, reading an article this week about it to get out of tutorial hall. That's a good idea if you're stuck
yeah,
there.
I actually saw something too that I thought was interesting is if you actually read the documentation of a lot of like software that you use, this happened to me the other day, and I now I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was reading some documentation and they're like, we're working on this feature. If you'd like to contribute, please reach out to our team. Right. And those
Yeah.
are opportunities to contribute. Those look really good on your resume, right? If you're like, hey, I contributed to this open source project, especially one that people use frequently, that's a great way to sort of like boost your brand or boost your knowledge and your skills, your
Your
reputation as a
repertoire.
developer. Yeah, your
Yeah.
repertoire. So
Not to mention
cool.
And
you'll meet other developers, which is always a positive. I
Yeah.
mean, the more community you have, and and a lot of these people do a lot of open source, so they are very, should be friendly. Yeah.
here's another way to contribute to open source. Actually posting your own work on GitHub
Hmm.
as a public
Yeah.
profile. And
Yeah.
then posting it in, say, like Code Noob's Facebook group saying, "Hey, here's some stuff I'm working on. What do you
Yeah.
guys think about it?" Because
Yes.
you're contributing to open source by doing whatever work you're doing, even if it's just following a tutorial, but then you have other people looking at it as well. They can see the source code and they can contribute if need be.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And I would also add to that, when you do create your project, go onto ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to create a README file for your project that will attract other open source developers to work on it. Because I think that's a really important one. When you go to a project on GitHub, if you see that there's no README file, more than likely you're not going to contribute to it because there's no information to go on. So you need to have like basic things about the
Ac-
project.
That's a good point too, because an open source project too, the README file will have different information. It might have information
Yeah,
about how to install it, right? What dependencies it relies on. It's something you might have in a regular project, but it's also going to have more information that's like developer centric too, of like, what are we
right.
using? What's our team like? That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
and like what's the structure of the project and things like that,
yeah.
data structures. Yeah, cool.
All right.
Number 3 is build a portfolio
Which
project.
we talk about constantly, and
Probably the
I think
most
this is
important
the
of the whole list.
Yes,
I
quite
think this is
possibly.
probably the most. I think this is the
It's,
most important. I think you learn the most
yeah,
building your own stuff.
it's interesting to me that this is not more sort of like widely recommended in software development, especially for junior developers. Like there's all this talk of like, you got to learn every language, you got to take every tutorial, watch this 60-hour to like masterclass tutorial on whatever. And very infrequently do you actually hear people say like, hey, you should probably just build your own projects from scratch because you'll
Yeah.
learn a lot that way. More
And you know what's
frequently than
funny?
not, they're like, just follow my tutorial.
Well, because you can't sell people stuff when you say build your own
I
projects.
know.
That's
You
the
could,
problem.
you could,
You
you could
can.
build them, you could sell them some portfolio building something, but I agree with you. I understand what you're saying.
No,
It's
By
I
the
think that is a
way,
big
you
part
guys
of
should
it.
definitely check out our web dev incubator and the web dev launchpad we have coming up soon.
Yes, you
Yeah.
should. Because we're
Which
going
is
to do
all
this
focused on it.
stuff. Like we have, you know, inside the incubator, like that's what we do is we help people
Well,
work on portfolio projects to add to their portfolio because ultimately you need to show that you can actually build stuff and not
I've
just
also
follow
seen this.
tutorials.
I've seen this with, with the people in our group that like the more you build on your own, the more you start to understand how these projects are planned, how things
Yeah.
go together, how they fit together, and you make better decisions. Because it's
Not to mention
confusing
you
at
can just
first.
read code better. Like the
Yeah,
more you
that
build, the
too.
more you can read other
Yeah.
people's stuff and it actually makes sense.
And also the more you realize that, hey, you can do this. There's like nothing
Yeah.
stopping you. Even if it's something
Yeah.
you're unfamiliar with, you can figure it out. And it's just
Yeah.
baby steps and you can do it. Like it's cool. It is really a good feeling.
Yeah, I agree. All right, the
All
next
right,
one
number
is,
4,
go ahead, Randall. Give it
master
to
data
us.
structures and algorithms in every language you possibly can. Oh wait, no, sorry.
Forever.
Just it was just
Not the
master
last
data
part.
structures and algorithms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So figure out the basics and you do it in one language and it's going to be the
Yeah.
same in every other language.
That's the
But
Yeah.
thing that you got to understand, right? Is this stuff is the same in everything. So it's good to just learn it in one, understand it, and you're good. Once you know how to work with it,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of syntax and you'll figure it out.
I'm gonna just throw out this like I'm just putting this out there because I've been reading it, but if you guys are trying to learn JavaScript, I think one of the best books I've read is that JavaScript Crash Course
Dude, those
by
Crash
No
Course books
Starch
are
Press.
awesome. The Python one was amazing.
Yeah, it's
Very good.
really
Yeah.
good. Like, I think, more often than not, JavaScript is one of those things that the way that it's taught makes it more complicated than it actually needs to be. And one of the things that I really like about this book is that they go through each important topic, but they only give you as much as you need. It's not like an hour and a half about what variables are. It's like, this is a variable, this is how you declare it. Let's move on to the next thing. So you don't get bored. Like, you keep learning new stuff. It's a really
And
good
it has
book.
projects in the back, just like the Python one did. And
Correct.
dude,
Yep.
doing those, that's what helped me so much with Python was that Crash Course
Yeah.
book. Got me really going with it because the projects were amazing. They helped me
Yeah.
understand how things work together. And like you said, it's not a waste of time. You're not
Yeah.
reading hours and hours of stuff about every little thing when you don't need to.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing.
I was
Go
thinking
ahead.
about you saying that because I'm reading that eloquent JavaScript post on our YouTube channel, which if you're
Yeah.
listening to the channel, you can hear me read eloquent JavaScript on our YouTube channel for
And your
Yeah.
free.
It's
sweet voice.
But
mesmerizing. It's
it's mesmerizing.
mesmerizing.
But that book, he tries to sound all fancy pants all the time, and he goes
Yeah.
way too in technical depth with every topic, which is
Yeah.
great if you want to cover everything, but for a beginner, it's just not necessary.
But that's also what you see a lot in these coding books is like especially with JavaScript because there's those different versions and stuff. They'll get so caught up on well and ES5 blah, 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 and it's like, dude,
Yeah.
nobody cares. If you're trying to learn
Yeah.
JavaScript, this is not helpful. Like it's good to know where it came from and stuff, yeah, whatever. But like I need to know what's going to be practical now and like
Mhm.
move on because it
Yeah.
just gets too confusing. I agree.
It's true. Hey, this is a complete tangent, but I think it's worthwhile because we're talking about JavaScript. The other day, I listened to an interview between Lex Fridman, who's like a uh, interviewer, like very popular interviewer, podcaster, and Brendan Ike, who is the creator of JavaScript. And
Nice.
it was a really, really good interview. If you have a chance, it's really interesting because you get to see into the brain of Brendan Ike, who created JavaScript, why he created it, why
He's like, I
he's
just
made
wanted some animations and stuff on
yeah,
the websites. It was
pretty
getting
much.
annoying.
Well, it's interesting because he talks a lot about like how JavaScript came to be and
He
how it
made it
was
in
just
like
like,
14 days or something, right?
yeah,
Oh
it
yeah,
was, he
yeah.
was like rushed to get it out because I think it was like Microsoft was uh, pushing some competitive code or something like that. And so yeah, he had like very little amount of time to like actually get it out there. And so he basically did what we talk about all the time inside the incubator. He made an MVP of a software language and then he got feedback from the community and continued growing it. And what's interesting is he talks about how some feedback was really good and some was really bad, right? It was just like he would go to these conferences and I forget exactly what it was about. I think it was like type coercion or something strange, like some odd feature of JavaScript.
Where the
And
feedback was, you guys need type in this. And he's like, nah, nobody will use type in
yeah,
Nope.
JavaScript. You got to be
yeah.
crazy.
No, no. It was something, I forget exactly what it was, but he's like, somebody just like wanted this feature and I was at a conference and they asked me and I was like, okay. And I just put it in. And now like, he's like, I kick myself every day because it's a feature that like nobody really likes, but I just listened to like whoever in the early days because they wanted it. And so, but it was a really interesting interview because it gives you like a peek into the mind of one of the best developers of our time, I think.
Also, that's
And
also
why
cool
he
too.
made decisions and like the fact that he's not perfect,
No,
like he,
nobody is. And I think the
yeah,
other thing cool about that is like you said, like,
Speak for
dude,
yourself.
when you get feedback too, like not all the feedback's gonna be good or valuable or helpful to
right.
everybody either. It might be
Yeah.
very specific. So you gotta also, it's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right,
The
what's next on our
next
list?
one, Randall, give us the next one.
Okay, focus on writing clean, maintainable code. Adopt best practices such as adhering to coding standards, adding meaningful comments, and keeping functions small and focused. What was that book
That's a
we
good
all
one.
read? Clean Code? Was that the
Clean
one?
code.
Clean
Clean code was
code. Yep.
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
that one was a really good book on writing clean code.
Yeah, absolutely. If you
The
want to
nice thing about
do,
that, you can just listen to it too. You don't even have to really like physically read it
yeah.
or do the things, because
And if you have a Spotify account, I'm pretty sure it's free on
it
Spotify if
is.
you have premium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charles said Lex Fridman is a Drexel guy. Yeah.
Like me and
He's
Charles Drexel
yeah, he's a
guys.
pretty interesting guy. He does a lot of really cool interviews.
It must be a
Um,
Drexel thing.
it must be, yeah,
It has to be
totally.
from
It's a
Drexel. It's like
Drexel.
this.
They have like a podcasting course
Uh,
seminar at Drexel when you went there.
no idea. No
That was
idea. I'm
before
pretty sure it was before
podcasting
the internet
existed.
existed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think I think the clean code one is important because I think what people don't do a lot, especially when they're new
Mhm.
developers, is refactoring. I think go
Yeah.
back to your old projects and redo them and do
Yeah.
them better with the skills you have now. To one, it shows you how much you've learned, and two, it teaches you how to look back through old code and find problems and rewrite it and adjust it and shows you that you can do
Yeah.
that. I think that's critical.
I think one of my biggest takeaways from that entire clean code book was, and this is like early on in the book, he's talking about how they recorded sessions of people doing software development. And like 90% of the session was just scrolling up and down the screen. It wasn't
Reading code.
typing. It wasn't, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just reading code. And so I think if there's one thing that you could get out of that book, it's this. It's that when you write code, you should avoid creating technical debt, which means you should avoid saying to yourself, I'll just fix that later, right?
Yeah.
Because that's technical debt. It means like you have to do some technical work sometime in the future. And I think that speaks a lot about, the whole like reading thing. Like the more technical debt you create, the more you have to read through code and like dig through it and try to understand what's going on. If it's just clear, clean, and there's as little technical debt, like you take care of everything the first time around, then your code just
Now,
works and maintains better.
I was gonna say the
Yeah.
other thing too, tied to that from that book that I got to, and I think it's something all new developers and like an idea they have in their head of perception is that like coding is like sitting down and being like like writing this like stuff so fast because you
Speed
look at these
coding.
tutorials. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's not what coding is. Coding's a lot of
Oh,
planning. It's a lot of
yeah.
reading. It's a lot of thinking things through, solving problems, and it's like you code here and there as you're doing that, right? But it's not like this rapid fire. And I think
Yeah.
realizing that early is good because it gets you over a hurdle that will, be an impediment, to your learning and stuff as you go.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
what I learned in that book. But
Yeah.
Okay.
so comments are failures in code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That
That
was
was a
really
good one.
eye-opening for me because I always
I
like
remember when you
when I
said
would
that.
learn
Yeah.
coding, they indoctrinate that where they're like comment everything. You need to have expansive comments so you could do whatever. And
Yep.
actually comments are there just because we write poor code that you
Yeah.
can't figure out from the
I
code
wonder why our
alone.
boot
So
camp had so many comments in there, code.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, but it's an interesting
All
way of
their
thinking about
comments were
it,
like, uncomment this, copy and paste into your version.
right?
No, but I like that too. You're right, because if your functions aren't named in a clear way, like about what they do,
Yeah.
it's kind of think about how stupid that is, right? Like in hindsight,
Yeah.
it's like it
Yeah.
shouldn't just be called like here's my
There's
function. It should be
there's so
like
many
some
like
name.
My
lit
function.
yeah.
My function too. My
It's
third
not even my
function.
function, it's my funk.
Yeah, right.
That's the
Short,
first
my
one. My
funk.
function is the second.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. We
Mm.
got a few more and we're getting late here. So let's
okay, let's
get
Let's
blow
go
through
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 these.
these.
these. I think the next one you should read, Randall,
Okay, fine.
because you're the
Learn and
expert here.
practice web security. And I actually have a
There you go.
couple, three recommendations for you guys if you want to do this.
Perfect.
Okay, so it says dive into stuff like the OWASP top 10, cross-site request forgery prevention, SQL injection mitigations. Don't do that. Here's what you do. Uh, Burp Suite Academy. So there's like this historic book, the Web Application Hackers Handbook,
Hmm.
that after 2011 they stopped printing because they figured, hey, you could just put this stuff online, and they created an interactive academy that's free called the Portswigger Academy or Burp Suite Academy. If you go on there, has all the web security stuff you could ever need to know. It's the most comprehensive thing, and it's 100% free to use, and like it's very interactive, so it's great to follow along. So I would say if you're looking for something that's free, go for that. If you're looking
Nice.
for something that's a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun, that is like the premium model type of thing where they give you a little bit for free, and then if you really want the interactive, you have to pay more. There's Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. Try Hack Me
Mm,
has the lowest barrier of entry, so it's like the easiest way to get going without setting stuff up. Hack the Box, you need to be a little bit more know-how in terms of setting stuff up, but they're both excellent resources for learning if that's your interest. But if you just have a little bit of time that you want to learn some web security, just go to Burp Suite Academy and just play around with it. You'll be blown away how awesome it is and how much you can learn from just setting up a web proxy and then running through programs like you would normally do.
Oh, dude, you learn so
Interesting.
much. And I think that's also good advice too, because if you're also interested in it but not sure, starting with the free stuff is the best way to start. Because then you can kind of figure out like, is this actually a good path for me? If that's, somewhere you want to go, and then figure out like get your feet wet before you dive in.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's huge. What would you recommend, maybe like top one, two, or three things for software developers to just keep themselves secure as a software developer in 2025?
Uh, uh, okay, so personal,
Just
yeah,
basic. Doesn't have to be anything crazy.
personal. Okay,
Updates?
well, yeah, update your system,
Hmm.
use a password manager, and be very, very cautious about links. So
Yeah.
there's a website called Virus Total. So I think it's virustotal.com.
Hmm.
So anytime you have a questionable link, before clicking on that link, just submit it to virustotal.com because it has like 50 security vendors who will look at that and let you know if there's anything questionable about it. Because and here's the reason why you don't want to click links, because you can have the best security in the world, tons of firewalls, all types of stuff, but if you click a link to a malicious site, what can happen is your computer sends packets out to that, and based on any firewall rules, if your computer sends out packets first, then they'll come right back to you. So that's a way that
Mm.
attackers can gain entry into your computer. There's a whole bunch of other
You've
attacks that they
opened the
can
door
do.
to them, right? Essentially,
Yeah,
is
there's
what
a
you've
whole
done.
bunch of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, all types of stuff that you can do by clicking on malicious links. And so it's just a best practice to be cautious about links that you're using.
Good stuff.
Mhm.
Love it.
That's good stuff.
Cool.
But if you
Uh,
ever receive an email from a Nigerian prince,
it's
100% legit. So just
It's true.
click on that one
it's
and
probably
send them your
true.
bank account details and social
Yeah.
security and all that
There's a
fun
lot
stuff.
of unbanked Nigerian princes in
Well,
Yeah.
you
over
know,
there.
Hey,
it's such a rich country and they just want to share the wealth with
that's what it
Yeah.
everybody.
is.
With
And they
the
Yeah.
keep finding
world.
this money around. I think
Yeah.
we could probably, the last four we could probably do pretty quick if you want. Like, I think
Yeah.
Yeah, let's bang
the
him out.
7 and 8, I would do together. Like, automate repetitive tasks and get certified or complete a course. They're good if you don't know what you want to do. Like, if you don't have a project in mind or you don't have something, I think these are good, like, side things you can do, just like
I
kind of
mean,
get yourself back into
I
it if you
think
really want.
I actually really like number seven, which I know you read this sort of fast. It's automate
Oh, yeah.
repetitive tasks, right? So
That's a
like,
good way to find problems in new projects.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is a great one actually because it is a way to like teach yourself and explore some new stuff in software development. Like something that you do frequently, make a little mini app to do that for you or to automate it to some extent. It's a great way to learn basic stuff.
Automate the boring stuff with Python is a fun book
Yeah.
too. If you're doing Python
Hmm.
and you want to do some like automation of like emails, it's a very simple stuff that most people encounter every day. Like,
Yeah.
maybe spreadsheet stuff, email stuff, like that kind of thing, but it's effective and fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be an interesting experiment. Like, let's say you wanted to branch into another language and you have automate the boring stuff with Python. You could try automating the boring stuff with JavaScript. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
nowadays with ChatGPT, if you can't figure it out, you could just throw the Python code into
Totally.
ChatGPT and be like, write this in JavaScript and it'll be done in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would add explain what you did
Yes.
to
That's
Yeah.
that
very
as
good.
well.
Yep.
Um,
The number 8 get certified or complete a course. I actually like this. This is one way that I've learned a lot, not because the actual certifications mean anything because they don't,
yeah.
but that's one way that I motivate myself to learn stuff because I do it more for the learning aspect of it than for the actual certification. Like
Hmm.
after you get a certification, it's pretty much worthless. But if you learn stuff while doing it, then it's totally
But
100%
to
worthwhile. So
that
I
point,
think
you
that's
will
worth.
get a course, right? You will get a plan of material to follow. You'll get a directed study guide, basically, which is always helpful if you don't,
Mhm.
if you're trying to learn something. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I
I
also
want
like
to
the,
add something to that though. I
yeah,
want to add something to number 8, which is one of my resolutions for this year, which is attend a conference. I
yeah,
think
I think
that's
that's a good
actually a
one.
really good one because I don't I
We're all
don't
doing
really see.
Netherlands in the Amsterdam in the summer, right?
Yeah, we should. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
No, but for real, like I think that's a great way to network, and I don't think there's really too much on this list about networking, which is a important skill, especially for junior developers. So attend
I
a
think it's and
conference, I would
finding
add
ways,
to that.
attending conferences, and you could. I think that's where like that open source stuff comes in too. Is like
Yeah.
that's good ways to network.
Or even a local meetup. Maybe a conference is too much, but find a
Yeah.
group of people who code around
I
you.
like the last two I like because they are also more on the soft skill side as well,
Hmm.
which is, like public speaking. I would just say this is work
Yeah.
on your
So
communication skills, broadly speaking. Like I think is a good idea.
Mm.
yeah, so number 9 is conquer your fear of public speaking, and I think it is important. I mean, developers generally are very quiet people who don't know how to enunciate or communicate very well. That's the stereotype, at least. I don't think that's entirely true based on a lot of the developers that I've talked to. It is for
Yeah.
some of them, but some of them not so much.
Well, I think learning how to communicate though about what you're doing effectively.
Yeah,
There's a
effectively is a
difference between
key
just
word.
chatting and yeah,
Yeah,
like learning how to communicate about what you're
And you
doing
know
is
what's
good.
interesting? For most anxiety-based fears, the best thing for combating them is exposure therapy. So actually doing the thing that you're afraid
yeah,
of, because every time you don't do it and every time you shrink back from doing it, the fear actually grows. So if you
yeah,
are afraid of communication, afraid of public speaking, every time you don't do it, you're actually reinforcing that fear. Whereas if
yeah,
you just do it, you discover that the dragon has no teeth or the monster has no teeth. And it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, you're sweating, you make a fool of yourself, but hey, that's the worst that happens. We're all human. We all make fools of ourselves all the time.
yeah. I watched this Jeff Bezos interview a long time ago, and it's funny that you brought this up because I was just having this conversation yesterday. But it was a really great interview. It was from Jeff Bezos long time ago, like early days of Amazon. And somebody was interviewing him and talking about like how he's able to get so much done. And he's basically started talking about anxiety. He was like, most people in the world today have anxiety in some form. And he's like, the reality is anxiety is not like something that you get. Like it's not a disease. What anxiety is knowing that you should be doing something and actively choosing not to do it. That is anxiety. That is literally the feeling of anxiety is like, in the back of your head, there's something I should do right now, but I'm choosing to not do that. And the anxiety comes from like that feeling of I should be doing something, but I'm not.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really interesting. And that's always stuck with me because it is very true. I mean, anything that you're anxious about is tied to like, I should have done something or I should be doing something related to that, but I'm just choosing not to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, like what you said, exposure therapy, like just do the thing and then your anxiety will go away. So,
Mhm.
if your fear is public speaking, just go and public speak. Anyway, number
Yeah.
10, practice problem solving daily. And I mean, dang, if
This is
that ain't like the summation of what software development
yeah.
means.
And I think
Um,
building your own anything on this list will help you with that, right? And
yeah,
but it's also like I think practicing and problem solving can also help you find problems, which means finding things that you could potentially create that would solve them. But it also helps you think through all these planning, all the projects you're doing, and then all the little things
yeah,
you're going to run into throughout that process of building anything is going to be all problem solving.
yeah. It mentions here too, like use platforms like Leet Code, Code Wars, and Hack the Box. And I think this is sort of helpful advice too, because these are things that doing these daily or at least repetitive, maybe not every day but a couple times a week, that will definitely help you when you go to apply for a job, because these are the
Yeah.
questions that you will see on interview, like technical interviews. So definitely, especially if you're looking to find a job, those are great places to start, to at least build those skills, because you are going to get technical interview
And a lot of
questions that are
skills
going to be
tests
like obscure stuff.
And a
Yeah.
lot of skills tests that they're going to give you when you apply for jobs are going to be things that you do online through places like that, essentially, that you're going to have
Yep.
to complete some set of, weird test. Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
part of this one that's not really mentioned, but is inadvertently mentioned, is the habit of doing stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like getting used to improving a little bit every day and doing a little bit every
Yep.
day, because all of us have these big dreams that we're like, oh, I'm just going to do this and then I'm going to be a developer. I'm going to do that and then I'm going to have my dream. And that's just not the way that it works. Like you just
Yeah.
do a little bit every day for long enough and then eventually you get it. But like actually building up the habit of doing that where you just do stuff regularly and then stuff gets done. And it's something
Yeah.
that not only works with coding, but it works pretty much everywhere in your life. If you
Everything.
focus on the same stuff over and
Well, that's
over
one of the
again,
things
you're
I
going to accomplish
really
it.
hate too, is about all these like, learn this in 24 hours, do this, in 11 months you'll be a skilled software developer, in 6 months you'll know whatever. Like it's put so much pressure on time, and it's like so
Yeah.
inaccurate, because really mastering anything is going to take longer than 24 hours. Let's be honest,
Mhm.
right? You're never going to
Yeah.
know. Even if you're a skilled developer going to another language, you can pick it up quick, but it's not going to be in 2 minutes. You're going to need to spend time with
Totally.
it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of junior developers have this struggle where they feel like I have to get like there's some like thing they have to do, they have to check off until and then they're a developer, or like there's some I don't know, there's some finish line to like becoming a developer. And I think the
Yeah.
reality that I've seen is you don't ever just like feel like a developer. You just, the time when you feel like a developer is when you declare that to yourself. But
Yeah.
really, you just continuously feel more and more like a developer. Like every time you learn something new, you're like, oh, I'm more of a developer now. It's not like I changed into a developer at some point, you know?
I keep
Yeah.
I keep getting so like at the co-working place where I go to, I chat with a lot of people there, and one or two people keep coming up to me and they're like, "So you done your courses yet?" And I'm like, every time I see them, I'm like, I'm never gonna be done. Like this is a lifelong thing.
Are
Like,
you done your courses yet?
I'm
yeah,
still learning. There's still a
yeah.
lot
Yeah.
to
But
learn.
it's like it's
But yeah,
crazy because there is this mindset of people that you can just get to somewhere and just coast for the rest
And
of your
you're,
life.
well, I
yeah.
think that's what a lot of
And
people think about work, though, right? Is I learn this set of skills, I get the job, and then that's all I'm doing
For the
henceforth.
yeah.
And I
rest
think
of my
that
life.
What's
that's
interesting
yeah,
about that though is that it's one of those things where like logic doesn't really play a role, right? Because
no,
people are like, "Hey, I just want to get to this place where I can just coast forever." But then they get to that and they're coasting forever and they're like, "Life sucks. Life's boring. There's no new
yeah,
adventure in life. I hate this." And you just work a boring job until you die. Like the whole point of life is to continuously learn and expand and become a better human being and grow. And so why would you want to just like get to a point where you're like, cool, never have to learn another thing in my life, just gonna sit back and enjoy the
yeah,
money? Like
yeah,
it doesn't make sense, you know? You want to continue growing. So even if
yeah.
like one day you learned everything there ever is to learn about web security, which is like literally impossible, but like if you did that, if you're like the master, wouldn't you just want to like learn something else that's sort of related to that? Like maybe,
Like,
I
how do
don't
I
know.
create a botnet that I can sell, maybe
I
rent?
know,
Yeah.
right? The
You
biggest
know?
Yeah.
botnet ever. Yeah.
I was gonna go like game development or something like that,
Yeah,
but then we
I
just
call
went to
it
like
I call it
Russian
botnet as a
botnets.
service.
Yeah. Bass.
That's that's awesome.
That's a
Uh,
good one. Anyway, all
yeah,
right. With that, thank you guys for hanging out for another Saturday. I hope you all have been killing it with your New Year's resolutions. If not, we just gave you a couple ones to work on.
A kick in the
Um,
pants, as they
a kick
say.
in the
yeah.
pants. Yeah. And if
Also,
you
don't
are
worry. Start that
trying
habit
to
later
be,
too, if you have
yeah,
to.
if you are trying to become a software developer, if that is your aspiration, if that's what you want to do this year in 2025, we are here to support you. We have a couple of great ways that you can join our community. If you're listening to us on YouTube, head over to facebook.com/groups/code noobs and join the 1,400 members that we have over there who are contributing daily, sharing their journey as a software developer. Also, if you want, the next step up from there is our inner circle, our web dev incubator, where we have 2 weekly calls with us, the mentors. You jump on a Zoom call. We give you mentoring. We provide accountability and motivation, along with a community of other software developers. So you get that amazing networking aspect as well. Get some like a little bit of um, competition in there as well, so you feel
Well,
like
here's the
motivated
coolest
to
thing about the
continue working.
incubator is that it's
Yeah,
not for everyone. So
it's
before
not.
you can
Yeah,
even join the incubator, we make sure that you're someone who's willing to put in the work and become a developer. So actually, our
yeah.
inner circle web dev incubator is some really hardcore web developers who sometimes
All
just months
contribute too.
after,
Yeah,
yeah,
and all
just months
contribute
after
to me.
joining are already finding work, paying work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you are interested, how do they find out about that, Ross?
You can actually just reach out to us. We'll do a action call pretty soon, probably next week. We're going to launch our new website. So I'll have a much easier way for you guys to check it out. But yeah, just ping me or write in the description New Year's and I'll reach out to you. We can set up a free action call. And really, the free action call is just an opportunity to give you some free mentoring, learn a little bit about who you are, and see if this is a great option for you, if the web dev incubator is something that'll help you out. So if that's something you're interested in, just comment below New Year's, or reach out to me directly. Just ping me on Facebook and we'll get you started. And with that, unless you guys have anything else,
Nah.
thank you guys for tuning in to another Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And if you are inside the web dev incubator, we will see you in about 15 minutes for our Saturday call about motivation, accountability, and code reviews. So if you guys have anything that you're working on, you have any bugs, anything you have questions on, make sure you bring them because we'll be answering all your questions. Cool. With that, thanks again. Go ahead, Danny. Do you have something to say?
No, I was gonna say later, guys.
Oh, later, guys. Goodbye,
Later.
everybody.